The sound of her laughter cut through the courtroom like a blade. It wasn't soft or embarrassed. It was sharp, mocking, the kind of laugh that made people turn their heads and wonder how a woman could be so heartless. She was laughing while signing the divorce papers. And I sat there, pen in hand, my chest heavy, wondering how the woman I once swore to love forever could treat the end of our marriage like the punchline of a cruel joke. The beginning of the end. My name is Daniel Reed. I married Claire 10 years ago. To anyone watching from the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. Matching smiles and Christmas cards, vacations by the beach, a house filled with laughter and warmth. But if you peel back enough layers, you find cracks. Cracks that start small, like hairline fractures in glass, until one day the whole thing shatters. I first suspected something was wrong when Claire started staying late at work. Deadlines, she'd say, waving her phone around as proof of some urgent email. I wanted to believe her. I chose to believe her because the alternative meant everything I had built my life on was a lie. But lies have a way of bleeding through the seams. The perfume that wasn't hers. The text message that flashed across her screen. Last night was amazing, can't stop thinking about you. My hands shook as I stared at it, my heart clawing at my ribcage. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. She just sighed, shrugged and said, "I deserve to be happy, Daniel. You don't excite me anymore." Those words broke me more than the cheating itself. Betrayal in broad daylight. The weeks that followed were filled with silence and cold wars. Claire made no effort to hide her affair. She went out openly, sometimes not even bothering to come home. I stopped asking questions, I stopped begging. Just stop. But I wasn't a fool. I documented everything, the texts, the photos, the credit card bills. My lawyer told me that in our state, evidence of adultery still carried weight in divorce proceedings. Claire laughed when I served her the papers. "You think you're going to humiliate me in court," she sneered. "Please, Daniel. I'll walk out of this with everything. A house, car, hell, maybe even your retirement. You're too soft to fight me." She was wrong. Courtroom tension. The day of the divorce hearing, the courtroom smelled faintly of coffee and dust. Claire walked in wearing a bright red dress, the kind you'd wear to a cocktail party, not a legal proceeding. She looked radiant, smug, like she was the star of a show and everyone else was just background. Her lover, Mark, the man she had thrown our marriage away for, sat in the back row, grinning like a snake. The judge, an older man with tired eyes, shuffled through the paperwork. Claire leaned over to me before it began and whispered, "Don't look so miserable. Think of this as freedom. You were never enough for me anyway." I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. The hearing was straightforward. My lawyer presented evidence of her infidelity. Claire, unbothered, smirked as the photos were displayed, as though the shame wasn't hers to bear but mine for caring. Finally, the judge asked us to sign the divorce papers. That's when she laughed. Loud. Free. As though 10 years of love, trust, and promises meant nothing. The courtroom went silent, all eyes on her. "Something funny, Mrs. Reed?" the judge asked sternly. "Not at all, Your Honor," she replied, still chuckling. "I'm just glad to finally be rid of him. He was, let's say, less than satisfying." A few gasps echoed in the room. My hands trembled as I signed my name. She picked up the pen next, scrawling her signature with theatrical flair, still smiling. That was the moment I realized she thought she had won. But she had no idea what was coming. The will. Once the paperwork was complete, the judge cleared his throat. "Before we conclude, there is one final matter," he said. Claire's smile faltered slightly. "What matter?" The judge adjusted his glasses. "The reading of Mr. Reed's late father's will. It was requested that it be done during these proceedings, as the property in question is tied to the divorce settlement." I sat back, heart pounding. Claire blinked, clearly confused. "Will? What will?" I looked her straight in the eyes for the first time that day. "The one my father left behind before he passed last year. You remember, don't you? The estate, the lake house, the trust." Her expression shifted, shock, greed, curiosity. I thought that wasn't settled yet. It wasn't, I said. Until today. The judge continued, reading from the document. According to the last will and testament of Henry Reed, all properties, financial assets, and business holdings are to be inherited solely by his son, Daniel Reed. However, a stipulation was added regarding marital status. Claire's eyes widened. What stipulation? The judge's voice was steady, deliberate. In the event that Daniel Reed remains married at the time of this inheritance, his spouse will be entitled to share in the estate. If divorced, the spouse forfeits all rights, privileges, and claims. The words seemed to echo through the courtroom. Claire's face drained of color. The laughter that once bubbled from her lips vanished. The turn of the knife. You mean, she stammered, turning to me, if we hadn't divorced I would've. Half a fortune, I finished for her. The estate is valued at over $6 million, Claire. Her jaw dropped. You knew. You let me go through with this. I felt a strange calm wash over me, like the eye of a storm. You laughed while signing those papers. You mocked me. And all the while, you had no idea what you were throwing away. The judge cleared his throat again. As the divorce has now been finalized, Mrs. Reed, you are not entitled to any portion of the Reed estate. This court recognizes Daniel Reed as the sole heir. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, realizing his golden ticket had just burned to ash. Claire's hands trembled. For the first time the mask cracked, her eyes brimmed with desperation. Daniel, wait, maybe we can work this out. We don't have to file these papers. We can. No, Claire. My voice was firm, steady. You made your choice the moment you betrayed me. You laughed at my pain. You don't get to rewrite the ending. Her face twisted, a mixture of rage and regret. She turned to Mark, but he was already standing, inching toward the exit, his face pale. She was alone. Utterly, devastatingly alone. When the gavel struck, finalizing everything, I stood slowly. My lawyer patted my shoulder, but I barely felt it. My eyes were fixed on Claire, who sat frozen in her chair, the reality sinking in like poison. I walked past her without a word. For years I had given her my loyalty, my trust, my heart. And she traded it all for cheap thrills and empty promises. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp, the sun warm on my face. For the first time in months I felt free, not just from her betrayal, but from the weight of a marriage built on lies. Behind me I could hear her voice, faint but sharp. She was calling my name, begging me to stop. But I didn't. I kept walking, each step lighter than the last. Because sometimes revenge isn't about anger or cruelty. Sometimes it's simply letting the other person destroy themselves, and watching as they realize too late what they've lost.